Hi, my name is Nick Howenstein. I'm the creator of the TRex metadata library, and I want to welcome you to this video series where we're going to be creating custom connectors for logic apps using TRex. Now in this first part of the series, I want to introduce the most important attribute of all, the metadata attribute. And you might be saying, attributes? What are you even talking about? I don't even understand why we're having a discussion about that. So if you're building a custom connector, what you're really building is a web API. And that web API is going to describe itself to the Logic Apps designer through Swagger metadata. Now, Swagger metadata tends to be generated in the .NET world, at least, using the Swashbuckle library. Gotta love these fanciful names, right? Well, Swashbuckle is something that TRex actually extends, and it uses the operation filters, schema filters, and document filters to update that metadata along the way with helpful things for the Logic App designer to understand. And one of those things is going to be friendly names for your operations, for your properties, and for the parameters of your operations, as well as the visibility settings. Should we see them or should we not? I don't know. We'll find out. So that's what we want to get into here, and we're going to hop right in with a sample API that is waiting for TRex to be added. Now, before I get too far into this, what I'd like to do is I'd like to hop over to the Logic Apps designer first. And in the Logic Apps designer, what we'll find is we're going to find a Logic app that is using an API that isn't quite ready for Logic Apps. It can be used, it'll work at runtime, but it doesn't look that great. So you'll notice I have this operation where we're trying to get the time until a certain day, and you can see the method, you can see the address or the route to get there. As you click it, you can see the parameters, but they're not well described, and if I wasn't the one that wrote it, I might not know exactly what's going on. So if I take exactly that as my starting point, I can actually head over to Visual Studio and add to that project the TRex metadata library. Now, TRex is a NuGet package named TRex, and it actually takes a dependency on another package that just contains the core attributes that you're going to be adding to your methods, to your properties, and to your parameters. And so as you can see here, I've already installed version 2.0.7, which gives us full compatibility with the brand new custom connector functionality in Logic Apps, which actually won't be shown in this video series, but it will be compatible with that. Now, as we take a look at the action that we were just examining in the Logic Apps designer, what we'll find is an action that is called getCountdown. As far as the C# code is concerned, the name of the method is getCountdown. Now, above that method, you'll notice that I've commented out this metadata attribute. So the metadata attribute is actually from the namespace trex.metadata. And you can see that I've added a using directive already at the top of that file for trex.metadata. But that's going to bring in all of our core attributes for TRex. Now the metadata attribute has as its first parameter the friendly name of that operation, which is also going to be used to generate the Swagger operation ID. It'll strip all the spaces, and that way you don't need to use the Swagger operation attribute. You can just use metadata. You can provide a friendly description right after that, and optionally you can provide visibility settings. Should this be shown whenever you see the card initially? Should you have to click Show Advanced Options before you see it? That's what the third parameter, the visibility parameter, will configure. All right, so I can describe my getCountdown operation as getTimeRemaining, and by calling it that, that's going to become the Swagger operation ID, without spaces though. Now as I scroll down and take a look at the parameters, we can use that same attribute, the metadata attribute, on parameters of that operation. So we can use it to describe the month, the day, and the year parameters that are being passed in. So we have target month, the month part of the target date, and notice we have a visibility type on each of those, so we've added that visibility type part of it. For two of those, we're saying they're important. They should always show. We never want to hide them. We have another one that's internal. This is something that we're going to set in the background. We don't actually want the Logic Apps designer to show it. And then finally, we have advanced, other than default, by the way. Default is available. It just does whatever Logic Apps wants. Advanced actually makes it so that our parameter gets hidden unless the user clicks Show Advanced Options, and then they can actually see that item. So the metadata attribute there on those parameters is controlling their descriptions, but also their visibility settings. Now, if I take a look at the return type, you'll notice it's iHTTP action result, and so that means we have to look at all the different Swagger response attributes above, which are actually from Swashbuckle, not part of TRex, which can tell us what we might expect. Now, it looks like we might expect to get a time remaining model out of this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that definition, and we'll see our lovely time remaining model. And within that time remaining model, there's a lot of different properties. And if we want those described as you look at the outputs of a given action, we can do that, and we can use the metadata attribute to accomplish that as well. So I can go ahead and bring in friendly names and descriptions for each of my model properties. All right, so we can use metadata to describe both the operations and their parameters, as well as the properties on our models. Now, after I publish that, which I can do by right-clicking the project and clicking Publish, I'll notice that nothing has actually changed. And the reason for that is those are attributes that are just sitting there. And unless something reads those attributes and does something with it, nothing is going to change about the metadata. So what I'll need to do is I'll need to head over to the Swagger config file. Now, the Swagger config file is really the swashbuckle configuration. It describes to swashbuckle what it needs to do and what filters to enable around that metadata. Now, in our case, TRex is going to provide operation filters, document filters, and schema filters. In other words, it's going through the operations, emitting metadata about those. It's going through the schemas or the models, and it's emitting extra metadata about those, and it's going through the whole document at the end and making sure that there's a little bit of extra things here and there that need to get taken care of and that they do get taken care of. All right, so as we take a look, you'll notice that I have a line commented out right there, release the TRex. So c.release the TRex effectively enables the metadata generation that TRex is doing. All right, so if I've saved that and I publish, and by the way, that extension method, release the TRex, is also in the TRex.metadata namespace. If I go ahead and right-click and publish that API, we'll be able to see those changes in the Logic Apps Designer. All right, so it looks like the publish is well underway. And once Edge appears, so I can close it, that's how I know it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and close Edge and go back to Chrome. And as I look in the browser here, I'm going to see the same thing initially. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh real quick. That'll allow it to forget what it knows about those pending changes to that Logic app. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit it. And within the Logic Apps Designer, between the trigger, the request trigger, and the response action, I'm going to go ahead and add a custom action. So that custom action is going to be the one that we just built. So I'm going to go ahead and say add an action, and I'll say that as far as the action type, it's actually going to be Azure App Service. And as I go through and say Azure App Services, rather, we'll find that item right there. And then I can search for TRex videos, and I'll find the lovely Azure App Services API that we created. And you'll notice there's only one operation there, but it's beautiful. Now it's called Get Time Remaining. I know exactly what it's about. I can click into it. I see that each of the parameters is well described, so I can build a countdown to my birthday here. It's born on the 11th day of the first month of the year. I can show advanced options. You'll notice the target year shows up when I show advanced. So the visibility settings are taken into account as well. All right, so pretty much for the metadata attribute, that's all there is to it. And I hope that you stay for part 2 of this video series when it comes out. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope that you gain a lot of knowledge here and that you have fun using the TRex. Goodbye.
If you would like to help send me to college, please donate to MarysCollegeFund.eth. Thank you.